Hello everyone, Modim Simcha. Before we go back to Shabbat, which we'll do after Sukkot, we have a class today, a class tomorrow, and on Monday. So I just wanted to bring different aspects of Sukkot, especially in Israel. And the Gemara, both in the Jerusalem Talmud and in the Babylonian Talmud, talks about this special idea that we bring a libation of water on Sukkot, on the Olat Tamid, on the morning and after, well, only in the morning after offering, as far as I know. So they would go down to the Gichon or to the Shiloach spring the night before and do a whole procession going up to the temple mount, and then in the morning they would libate the water on the altar together with the wine, which is the usual. And so the Jerusalem Talmud says that we actually learn it from extra letters. So this morning in Torah reading, we read about the second day of Sukkot, even though it's technically a third day, so we did the second and third. And so Rabbi Akiva says, Nisu Chamayin Dvar Torah, that the libation of water is from the Torah. By the way, the Rambam says that it's Halacha Moshe Sinai, that it's not, meaning even if there is such a remez, a hint in the Torah, it's not how we learn it. We learn it because Moshe Rabbeinu was taught at Mount Sinai, just like he was taught about shiurim, meaning the measurements of things, and all kinds of other stuff. We say it's Halacha Moshe Sinai. So in the second day, Bashani v'niskehem. So the last word after series Chad Chatat, Olat Tamid Min Chata v'niskehem. Just to contrast it with the third day, it's Veniska, and that's how it is also for days 4 and 5. In the sixth day, it says Unsachea instead of Veniska, and in the seventh day, it says Kamishpatam. In the previous verse, V'misparam Kamishpat, it adds V'mishpatam, so Mem, Yud, Mem, Mayim, Amra Torah, Havem, Sorim, Bikurim Pesach, Shetitbarach Lefanecha Tvoah, so bring the barley, the first barley on Pesach, which we do the Korban Omer, in order for the grain in general to be blessed. Havechitim bikurim ba'atzeret, so bring the wheat, first wheat on Shavuos, in order for the fruit of the trees to be blessed. And by the way, that's one of the opinions, that the tree of knowledge in the Garden of Eden was wheat. It was maybe more like what we call today breadfruit. But now we have to work hard in order to make bread out of wheat. And last but not least, Mor Matan Nisu Chamayim B'Chag, that the libation of water on Sukkot, in order for the water of the year to be blessed. And so if you imagine, it's not like North America where we had rain just yesterday. Um, in Israel, there is no rain from right after Pesach, or sometimes even before Pesach, until way after Sukkot. And so it's called a dry season, and there's very very little water in the springs, and in like today we have pipes and all that, but in the old days it was very hard to get water. In fact, when there was a drought of 3 years ordained by Elijah, for his offering of the on the altar on Mount Carmel, he actually said, "Mil'u arba kadim raim," bring 4 jugs full of water, and v'itzku al olav ha'etzim, so pour them on the meat and on the wood, in order for it to be very clear that it's a miracle that there's fire, because fire doesn't light after the wood gets wet. And he says, "Vayam ashnu," and they put it a second round, and then shaleshu a third time. And so the water was so soaking that says "Vayalchu hamayim sviv lamizbeach v'gam et ha'te'ala milayimai." So this is after 3 years of not having water. This is probably the most fascinating chapter in the whole Tanakh. It talks also about how Ovadia, who later we know was a Navi, Ovadia hid 100 Nevi'im of Hashem in 2 caves, and he provided bread and water for them. Again, how did he have water for them? And in fact, just before this experiment on Mount Carmel, Elijah says to Achav, they're not going to find any water for their animals, but somehow there was still enough water for people. And here it looked like he was basically wasting 12 jugs of water on the altar where people were thirsty. And he said it's in order to prove that the rain will come from Hashem, and it will be very clear that it's only from Hashem and not from anybody else. So with that introduction of learning how to libate the water and to pray for rain and to make even more of a performance out of it, because this way we show that Hashem that we really want it, that we really need it. Um, let's go into Peninei Halacha for Sukkot. So it says, when the temple stood, a huge celebration complete with music and dancing was held in the temple courtyard every night of Chol Moed Sukkot. And the Talmud says that there was a rabbi who juggled 8 torches, lit torches. I can't even juggle 2 apples. Well, 2 apples, I guess I can, but not 3. But he had 8 torches lit, and he would juggle them in order to make it very happy. And it says in the Gemara in Sukkah, "Mi shelo ra'a simchat bet hasheva lo ra'a simcha mi'amav." Anyone who did not experience this kind of happiness did not ever see happiness in his life. And then after the evening tamid, the last offering of the day, they would start the happiness and continue all night. And then just before dawn, the Kohen would announce that we're starting the procession, and then they would blow the shofar and the trumpets, and they went into the Ezrat Nashim, etc., etc. And then it says that the procession went down to the Shiloach spring in order to draw water, lish'ov mayim letzorach nisucham. And today the way that we say it is the verse in Isaiah 12, verse 3. Ushavtem mayim v'sasam ma'anei Yeshua. So when Rabbi Melamed has every night of Chol Hamoed in a different sukkah, this celebration, after every Dvar Torah, everybody responds with Ushavtem mayim v'sasam ma'anei Yeshua, that it's called Simchat bet Hasheva, literally the happiness of drawing the water. And in addition to that, it says that the sages further report that the joy of this mitzvah imbued Israel's leaders with divine inspiration. This was an additional reason for the name, for they drew divine inspiration from there because Torah is also equated to water. Last but not least, if you compare it to the happiness of Purim, where the happiness there is with wine, and we even have an expression in vino veritas, which means that the truth comes out when you're inebriated with wine. It's incredible that Hashem would give the same kind of blessing with water that is not alcoholic and has this amazing idea. And again, they're drawing water and spilling it on the altar, which seems to be wasteful and basically, why are you wasting water? You're not supposed to. We have a mitzvah of bal tashchit. And so the idea is that we are doing it because we are sure that Hashem will bless us with water when we do this extra service. And so Rav Melamed continues, this joy rests on 2 foundations: the joy that typifies Sukkot and the special mitzvah of the water libation that took place only on Sukkot. During the year, all offerings, both individual and communal, were accompanied by a wine libation, which was poured on the altar. Only on Sukkot, at the morning tamid, was there a special mitzvah of pouring the water. In addition to wine on the altar, they would fill 2 receptacles, one with wine and the other with the water brought from the shiloch, and pour them out simultaneously into the shitin. It was a natural hollow space under the temple floor through 2 adjacent holes in the surface of the altar. During the construction of the temple, they built the altar above the shitin and left a narrow opening between the altar and its ramp so that the water libation could be poured into the shitin. And so we're not going to talk about the negative, but there was a time when the Sadducees were arguing about how to do the libation, and they would pour it on the floor instead of on the altar. And again, this is to show Hashem that we are going against our natural instinct and to use the water and drink it. but to put it on the altar on Sukkot, because we are going to be blessed with the rain that will come right after that. And so, if you remember when we learned about the laws of saying "V'ten tal matar l'orcha," if somebody was in Israel and they already started to say it, and then they go to Chutz La'aretz and it's before December 5th, they're supposed to continue saying "V'ten tal matar l'orcha," because that is the blessing, the request for the rain in Eretz Israel and not in Chutz La'aretz. So we'll stop here and open up for questions.